Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to call tonight's meeting to order, and we will begin with the approval of tonight's agenda for the public meeting. Councillor Sherwood and Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? That's carried. Was there any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Not seeing any. We will rise, if you're able, for the singing of our national anthem, please. We would like to acknowledge the treaty lands and territory of the Williams Treaty Nations and of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We also recognize that Dufferin County is the traditional territory of the Wendat and the Haudenosaunee and is home to many Indigenous people today. As tonight is a public meeting, with that, I will turn over the chair to Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor Post. Tonight's agenda includes 3 statutory matters and 1 non-statutory matter. Statutory matters are those that are required to be presented at a public meeting for applications received as per the Planning Act. There are no provincial legislation requirement for non-statutory matters. However, they are being presented as a mechanism to gather information. All members of the public are permitted to speak to statutory public meeting agenda items. However, only residents, taxpayers, service providers, or members speaking on behalf of an association or organization that serves the town of Orangeville are permitted to speak to non-statutory public meeting items, provided they have not spoken to the item before council in the preceding 3 months. If you'd like to speak to a matter and meet the requirements I just mentioned, please call 1-647-374-4685 and enter meeting ID 971-5643-1595, followed by the pound sign twice. Or you can attend the meeting by clicking on the registration link included on the public agenda. If you wish to be notified of any decision on these matters listed on the agenda, please contact the Clerk's Division with your name, phone number, mailing address, and email address referencing the specific matter by email to clerksdepartment@orangeville.ca or by calling 519-941-0440 extension 7303. All information submitted or provided during the public meeting or registration will be considered public information and entered into the public record. We will now move into the statutory matters portion of the meeting. So this is item 7.1. The first matter on the agenda is regarding OPZ 2026-01 statutory public meeting for 4th and 6th 3rd Street. Staff have confirmed that notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act for this item. So I'll now call on James Hunter from Morgan Planning and Development to provide his presentation. Mr. Hunter, did you want to come forward? Very good. Welcome, sir.
Sorry, through the chair, just to make sure the mic's on. Okay, perfect. Good evening, council, staff, and those in attendance tonight. My name is James Hunter, Morgan Planning and Development. So I'm here tonight as the lead principal and planner on behalf of the applicants who are Anjanov Management, courtesy of Orangeville No. 4 Inc. So again, this is a statutory public meeting for official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications for 4 3rd Street and 6 3rd Street. Next slide, please. So the subject lands are overviewed in the current slide in red. So the two properties subject to the application are 4 3rd Street and 6 3rd Street. So as you can see, the residential dwelling is located on each property. So that is the current use there. 4 3rd Street to the north. 4 3rd Street is located actually to the south. That is the dwelling that is to be demolished, and 6 3rd Street to the north. That is the dwelling to be retained and redeveloped. So I will speak to that throughout this presentation. So we're looking at a site area of 0.063 hectares with 26.1 meters along 3rd Street to the west and 24 meters along 1st Avenue to the north. Again, right now, so there's 2 existing driveways from 3rd Street, and there's one from 1st Avenue, which is located on the north. Next slide, please. This slide details the subject lands and the existing uses. So as you can see on the left, that is 6 3rd Street. So that contains a single detached dwelling and accessory structures. On the right is 4th 3rd Street, and that also does contain a detached dwelling and accessory structures. So the 6th 3rd Street property that you're seeing on the left, that is the existing dwelling that is going to be retained and integrated into the new site as part of our overall redevelopment plan. And the dwelling that you're seeing on the right, that is actually ultimately going to be demolished and used as parking as part of our proposed development. So I'll show that throughout the presentation tonight. Next slide. So what you're seeing on this slide here is the surrounding land uses of the subject lands. And again, the subject lands are shown there in red. So to the north of the subject lands is 1st Avenue, and beyond that are medium density residential uses, including several multi-story apartment dwellings. To the east of the subject lands is a variety of commercial and service-oriented uses along 1st Avenue. To the south, so directly south of the subject property are Greystones Restaurant and Lounge and the Greystones Cafe. So that is the property that you're seeing there, or properties in yellow outline. So that is the same operation group as the subject file we're speaking here tonight, but within a different ownership. And then to the west of the subject lands is 3rd Street in the western boundary of the property, which is then carried over by a low-density residential further to the west. Next slide, please. So for those of you who live in Orangeville, I don't think I have to get too much into the Greystones restaurant. It's pretty well known, and I'm from Barrie, and I heard about it before I took on the file, so that says certainly a lot of things about it. I just want to highlight a unique kind of vital piece of the project, because this is kind of a keystone project I would call within the community. So the Greystones Restaurant Cafe is located at 59, 61, and 63 Broadway. So again, this is the same kind of development group, ownership group. However, this application that we're speaking to tonight is on a different property, but I'll speak to the application as in the fact that we are looking to integrate this as one kind of commercial restaurant hub. So I would identify that as the key theme of this development. So again, the restaurant that you're seeing there on the slide, top left's a good image. That was originally constructed in 1852, and so that was ultimately revitalized into the Greystone restaurant that you know today. Highlighting 2 kind of things that I'll highlight throughout the rest of the presentation. So there's 2 components to the existing Greystones business, which is the restaurant, and that has the evening focus, and then the cafe, which is a daytime focus. So we're looking at kind of 2 different clienteles and 2 different business hours for the overall development of Greystones. So again, as I noted, these 2 uses support a vibrant, active commercial node at 3rd Street and Broadway. Next slide, please. So leading into our proposed development, we're calling this for the purposes of our application and the future overall plan, Pizza Co. 63. So this is a 1-story pizzeria focused on takeout and pickup with limited indoor seating. The plan is to have vaulted interior seating space and a rear garden patio, which creates a high-quality dining experience. And this is evening focused, dinner-oriented uses that will complement the cafe, which is again the daytime, and the restaurant. And this is designed as part of a cohesive commercial campus, again with the Greystones development to the south. So the plan for this is a functional site plan. Again, so we're integrating compatibility between uses, including landscaping and pedestrian walkways, improved parking and circulation with drainage features, and then a lot of the kind of day-to-day amenities that you need for commercial spaces all integrated within our site. Again, just to highlight as part of this development, the Greystones Restaurant, which is, again, quite a unique restaurant in the area. That was designed by Anjanov Management and designed through architect Jay Wells. So that building design is going to be carried over to the new site, which I'll show on the next slides. And just for the purposes of the public or those looking at the slide, so the gray outline that you're seeing there on the slide, that is the existing dwelling located to the northwest of our property. That is going to be the one that is redeveloped into the Pizza Co restaurant. The landscape open space around the perimeter of the property is highlighted in green. We're proposing one access point, which will serve the purposes of the parking, which is interlock showing to the south of the site, and we're highlighting the pedestrian parking in the orange there. And then behind the restaurant, we've highlighted that there's a blue kind of outdoor patio. So again, incorporating kind of a smaller outdoor seating space along with the smaller complementary aspects of the restaurant. Next slide, please. And again, on the slide here, you're seeing some overviews of the building elevations, using the natural elevations of the site to design this the structure, kind of revitalizing that existing dwelling, which is a one-story building, and contouring that into the demonstration you're seeing there. As well, on the top of the slide, you can see a kind of conceptual floor plate. So again, kind of the right side of the building is kitchen with limited seating area on the left side of the building. So again, the design of this building is a takeout and dine-in operation. So that's, you know, a pizza restaurant with limited kind of restaurant operations to support that business. And again, the design of this building and the overall development, again, is to integrate the commercial note of the Greystones restaurant. Next slide. Just to touch on the Greystones restaurant again, I know we've highlighted this a few times, but as you can see, the built form and the landscape design really of these buildings is focused on pedestrian realm and environment. So the goal is creating inviting and vibrant spaces, high quality spaces, as well as a lot of landscaping and street sign enhancements. So that not only kind of softens and screens any built form, but also parking areas or hardscapes. So you end up with quite a vibrant and inviting restaurant at that location. Again, so our development kind of using these, I'll call them as conceptual renderings, even though they're as built. These are examples of how we're looking to carry over the design into the new site. Next slide, please. Very briefly to touch on it, because I know it's an important consideration when we look at development is the engineering side as well, to create a functional project. One of the ways we can do that is through low impact development design. So that essentially leads to more sustainable and viable sites. So it not only acts as a control for stormwater management, but also improves site design and enhanced function. So the existing sites, as showcased on the slides here, now you can see landscape, open space, grass, interlocking, quite a variety of uses, and all these little features add up to what we call as LID designs. So our plan is to implement and maximize on-site design using LIDs where feasible, again, controlling stormwater management and other aspects of the site. Next slide. To provide a quick planning overview for the property, again, you can see it there highlighted in the red boundary. So we are within the settlement area of Orangeville. From an official plan standpoint, the land use of this property right now is residential. So that's highlighted on the top left image in yellow. And that is also part of the community improvement plan, location A, which is the commercial area. And then from a zoning perspective, this is in the RM1 zone currently. And so you can see that there in the brown on the right image. And also I'd like to highlight that if you can see here, all the pink areas that are detailed on these slides for the current designation zoning, that is the central business district. So next slide. So mirroring what I just spoke about in the previous slide, so we have an OPA application, which is our first of two applications. So again, from a more contextual standpoint, we're going from a residential and we're requesting a central business district designation. So really the idea to have the OPA to the CBD, this aligns with the intended land use and the vision for the current site, bringing this site into a commercial context to support the restaurant. So we believe through this process, you know, appropriate planning tools and approvals will kind of implement the objectives of the site, ultimately creating a vibrant and supportive community site. Next slide, please. Just a more visual representation. So this is the draft official plan amendment schedule. Again, so this is application 1 of 2. So what we're proposing to simplify it is to go from yellow to pink, as I like to say, which is residential, to the central business district. Also highlight that the lands to the south of us and the southeast and west are all in the CBD, which you can see in pink there. So our plan is to have kind of a comprehensive and unified designation across the site, as they ultimately are in different ownerships, but the Greystones property will act kind of as one as far as management. Next slide, please. And mirroring the official plan application, so we're also doing a zoning bylaw amendment. So again, that's the multiple residential medium density, which is RM1, and we're going again to the central business district zone. So in a long story short, to simplify it, we're taking the existing zoning, which permits a single detached dwelling, and bringing that into a commercial zone that would support our proposed development. So aligning both of the official plan amendments and our zoning bylaw amendments with the ultimate use of the property. Next slide. Again, this looks really similar to the official plan amendment, and that's actually quite useful. Again, the pink that you're seeing there is all the central business district. The purple, or sorry, not purple, geez. The brown is the RM1 existing zoning. So again, we're mirroring the pink in area to bring both the official plan designation and the zoning for the property into that pink CBD. Next slide, please. So the intent of this slide here is to show the zoning compliance for our proposed development. And this is being compared through the proposed development to the requested CBD zone. To simplify it, what you're seeing on the slide there is a matrix, and the matrix shows all the provisions that are required under the bylaw for the CBD zone. So everything that you're seeing there in blue shows that we comply. There's one exception, which is on the very far left in the bottom, which is policy 517, and that is parking space requirements. So through our application, we provided justification studies which supported the minor parking exception. So where 11 spaces are provided, 18 are required. But again, this is a kind of a unique attribute to our site because we're focused on primarily takeout, restaurant, and a local clientele. And we're also focusing on the fact that we have the downtown context, walkable layout, and on-street parking available in the community. So really, this is focused on a slightly different clientele and operation standpoint to the existing uses, where this is focused, as the clients have directed, more on a takeout approach and delivery. So reducing parking is a more viable option for the site, and we don't need the full parking provisions as requested by the zone. So next slide, please. To support our proposed development, there's a number of applications which were identified with our submission. I'll just highlight that we submitted a planning justification report, a low-impact development design brief, functional servicing report, and accompanying drawings, detailed architectural site plan and supporting drawings, which again will carry us through the site plan process. We did include a landscape concept for this, detailing again, as I showed on a few of the slides, landscape, open spaces, pedestrian realm, and improvements to the street corridor with our development. We also did hydrogeological and geotechnical studies demonstrating good soils and no impact to the water table, site surveys, and again, with our application, we had supporting documents which included amendments. Next slide. So in conclusion, we are asking council to support official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications to redevelop the underutilized residential lands, which will create a compact community-focused restaurant. The number of technical studies, as I overviewed, were submitted with our application, demonstrating that there's a suitable and compatible development. As well, we'd like to highlight that there are community benefits to this, so we believe that this will kind of create that commercial restaurant node, filling in kind of the last piece, as we call it, creating a neighborhood hub with an integrated infrastructure, enhancing the social and economic vitality of Orangeville's downtown core. And collectively, we believe that these applications do have policy alignment representing good planning. So it's our professional opinion that they do represent proper planning and sustainable development. Anyway, so thank you, council. That concludes my presentation. I'll take a step back in case there's any questions that may be directed my way. And I do also have someone from the applicant group here if there's anything more specifically. So thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mr. Hunter. We welcome our Barrie friends to Orangeville, so thank you for being here. If you could just hang out where you are for a minute, that'd be great. Okay, so we'll now move into public comments. We do have one registered delegate for this item, Michael Manuel. Is it Michael? Yeah. If you would like to come forward. Welcome, sir. If you could wait for the clerk to turn your microphone on, and you have 5 minutes. Is there? Whoa.
Sorry about that.
No renovating, please.
Yeah,
We'll
no,
just
exactly.
leave things as you found it.
Thank you, Council. This letter is an outline concern addressing the current proposal to develop the properties of numbers 4 and 6 3rd Street. Currently, there is residential housing located on the premises that have been partially gutted for renovations. This work began when Greystones purchased both properties from the previous owners for a substantial amount due to their intention to move forward with their agenda regardless of public opinion or opposition. Currently, the activity of the restaurant is much more than a nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood, and any expansion or addition would certainly affect the residents' lifestyle as well as creating a disruption on a daily basis, as is the present case. Since the current expansion, which saw the removal of 8 First Street over 5 years ago and an additional parking lot being added to the current staff and patrons refusing to utilize the area, instead, parking against the side of my property is encouraged, and subsequently, the amount of noise that staff and patrons contribute to the area on off hours and late nights is very disturbing to my sleep. Even with my windows closed, the noise is at most times invasive. The very fact that this area was intended to be residential prevents the intended increased traffic burden and volume of patrons they are trying to encroach on the area. As the property owner of 54 First Avenue, I had previously petitioned against the former owners of Greystones, being Tony and Annette Martin, when they had included live music to be played on loudspeakers on the previous patio before the recent expansion. The town council had decreed that only acoustic music would be permitted at that time due to the disruption to residents. The current owners have not adhered to this policy and instead have open DJs and music blasting from sound speakers so loud some nights it's permeating my living room across the road. Very upsetting for a shift worker, to say the least. This level of disregard to current residents, as well as the negligence of adherence to current parking rules, would only be amplified if the additional property is being used. The fact that on multiple occasions I have had patrons from the restaurant urinating and trespassing on my property speaks to the current level of negligence they are exhibiting. Many times over the course of their proprietorship have they allowed overservice to spill over to my livelihood so that unwillingly becomes my problem. Garbage continues to infringe on my yard left from people and parties who park adjacent. Many times they are parked beyond the perimeter, which makes exiting the alley very challenging. Included are photos of some of the recent infractions, most occurring on off hours that I had so that the town bylaw does not witness. I have addressed this previous, but it continues. The current area is poorly suited for what is being proposed. Currently, there are no less than 3 pizza restaurants within a 2-block radius of the proposed site, one of which is specifically dedicated to upscale pizza. It's somewhat redundant to think that we would need to have another such close proximity, and that while there are several empty real estate opportunities located around town that would be much better suited for such businesses that are not located in the middle of residential areas and development of residential buildings that could be providing opportunities for families in the community. Instead, the current proposal is trying to turn the surrounding area into Little Italy Orangeville and basically showing no interest in persevering some allotment of the area and the residents that have no choice but to live, not just casually dine, at this establishment. Currently, the staff of the restaurant are parking alongside the east-west portion of my property against the curb, which severely inhibits my privacy and ability to perform care for my property by blocking access to lawn maintenance and my ability to perform it. The property has suffered damage from around the embankments due to the current level of vehicles present on a daily basis. I can't be expected to cut my lawn and maneuver around the current volume of traffic, which is a daily infringement to my lifestyle, and more encouraged businesses would only impeach that. This should not be a concern to someone who pays residential taxes on his property, I feel. 3rd Street allows this volume of parking, and as well as not permitting left turns on Broadway, causes major traffic dilemmas on the street. Sometimes gridlock past First Avenue makes both intersections impassable, all while traffic flows into the restaurant. As Dairy Lane is my only access point to my residence and parking spot, the result is often difficulties in even leaving or entering my residence, and added businesses to the area are only going to result in more frustration for drivers and harder navigation in the area that is already bustling for residents. This has significantly changed the area over the last 5 years, and it is being done without considering the impact on the long-term residents in the area, including myself. It's blatantly obvious that no one who is investing in this added growth is sensitive to the needs of the community, where they are intended on merely profiteering without any regard of impact. This added light pollution alone on my residents in particular is disruptive to my living, as my windows would face directly towards the illuminated structure and would severely impact my peace in the residence. This area was not built with the intention of being a restaurant row. It's small homes that demand some privacy from the elite patrons who you're catering towards. Once you consider the additional garbage produced and that of the pests such as mice, which have been frequent in the area already due to the restaurant's current operations, it's not a suitable proposal to be granted for forward motion by council. As an alternative solution, I would encourage the proprietors to seek out a lease of property more suited to commercial development purposes, which there are several locations available around town in less convoluted areas that would be better suited than the disrupted venture currently being explored. Thank you for your listening to my concerns and hoping you will consider my position.
You got through it. Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Sorry
very
about
much
that.
for that. No, you're a very passionate person, and we appreciate you being here. And to be honest with you, more people should come and share their thoughts just as you did. So thank you for doing that. Just before you leave, sir, councillors, any questions for Mr. Manuel? No? Okay. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate that. Okay, so at this time, everyone, we will move right into the verbal comments during the meeting. So Madam Clerk, are there members in the gallery or who have phoned in, who are online, who may have questions or comments on this matter? No? Nobody? Okay. Okay, come on forward, please. Just state your name and address for us, if you could. Yes, please.
I live at 45 First Avenue, across the road from Michael Manuel, and diagonally opposite from number 6, 3rd Street. So I totally agree with Michael, and I have experienced a lack of parking on my street. I need to tell my visitors to find parking further down First Avenue or at the Town of Orangeville parking lot. My neighbor next door told me that her daughter did work at Greystones and was told by a friend employee that they're not allowed to park at Greystones and they have to find their own parking. So that's just to put a punctuation on what Michael said. So I think there are quite a few flaws here, as in, for example, the lack of parking sufficient for this establishment, the current and existing problems at that intersection, and I understand that it follows all the bylaws and the engineering reports or whatever, but there's more traffic because of this establishment that's already there, and it will be increased further with people coming and going for pizza. I do not know, and I would like to know if I can ask a question to Mr. Hunter, what the projected hours are of this venue, because people coming and going late at night for a pizza is going to be unpleasant.
I think it was actually in the report if I saw it. So
No,
it's-
it didn't say the hours. It said focused on evening, but it's a pizzeria.
Okay. Would you like to confirm what the hours would be if you knew?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have the exact hours, but we're focused on lunch to early evening because the restaurant is focused on evening dining. And then we have the cafe, which is focused on brunch and breakfast.
So that means that the 10 to 15 cars that are already on 3rd Street and First Avenue will be there all day, not just in the late afternoon and evening. There's at least 10 on 3rd Street and several up my street, First Avenue, daily. So, except the day they're closed, I think Monday. So that's a problem. I really think that when this province is seeking to have more housing and more affordable housing, that those two properties could be put to better use for this community.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. Appreciate you being here. Anyone else in the gallery that'd like to speak to this item? No? Okay. Seeing none. So the town has not received any written comments on this. So at this time, is there any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Oh, was Counselor, well, let's go with Counselor Stevens first. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Counselor
Thank you.
Stevens.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. With the grade in the area, will the front doors be accessible? And along the same lines, how many accessible parking spots will be out of the 11, if any?
Okay. Mr. Hunter, do you have that information by chance?
Sorry, I think the first part was accessibility and the second part was spaces, just it's hard to hear.
Correct. Yep.
There's one accessible parking space located right at the front door, so that will be accessible in accordance with OBC standards.
Okay, very good. Counselor Stevens, did you have a follow-up?
Sorry, and with the grade in the area, will the accessibility, like, will you be able to get to the front doors, no problem, walking from the sidewalk?
Just fading a
There's a,
little.
there's a really good, sorry, there's a really good grade in that area. I
Yes.
just want to make sure that it's all accessible.
Mr. Hunter, did you get that?
Yeah, sorry, through the chair, to Councillor Steven. So it's hard to see based on the site plans we've submitted, but there is a very kind of small landscaped retaining wall that's at the front portion of the property on Third Street. So that will bring the grades flat internal to the site, so that accessible parking spaces will be able to go right into the building at one single grade, no steps, no different elevation changes.
Very, very good. Just while we have you live, Counselor Stevens, are all good there, or did you want to ask another follow-up?
Nope, thank you very much.
Okay, very good, thank you. Counselor Andrews? Didn't we have you here first? Yeah, go ahead, Counselor
Thank you.
Andrews, and
You're
we'll come
very
over to
kind.
you, Counselor Sherwood.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hunter, thank you. I'm going to preface this from a couple of perspectives, one of which is one of my files is economic development. And I'm always encouraged when we have proprietors who invest in our community. So I'm being very clear. It's very important to see investment, encourage investment, witness investment in our community, especially during these difficult times. Having said that, I also see the complexity that has been, in fact, presented to us and the residents who have expressed their concerns about parking. So one of my questions is, I was looking at your rendering and trying to capture how many seats would be in the limited space in the interior, and also what would be defined as an exterior patio as well.
Mr. Hunter? It's not a race, just take your time.
Yeah, no, I, through the chair to Councillor Andrews, I don't believe I have the actual number of seats that are in that restaurant, top of my. 40, yeah, sorry, 40 total. And that is based off the maximum capacity for this smaller scale restaurant, and then the ability for visitors to go out in the patio and quickly eat their pizza and go, like primarily on the lunch hours. We call it quick in and out. That's what that's designed to be. And again, like I'm not the one doing the market study, but the focus of this is deliveries and kind of quicker meals, where we have the restaurant, which is, you know, higher end, longer time dining.
Okay.
So.
If I may, through you,
Councillor
and again, I was noticing on the rendering, there was, it looked like there was a bar area or a seating area. And again, anything can happen within the design process. And again, this is a rendering that is, at this point, a presentation for us to take a look at. So I'm assuming, because of the connection between Greystones, the cafe, and then this proposed location, that there could be alcohol served. Is that part of the proposal too as well? And again, I'm just looking at the design itself.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, sorry, I've also got Ronnie, who actually, he represents the landowner group from management side, and I'm the planner and project manager, so I don't believe we've discussed the licensing of it. There's a small bar, which the original intent was to wait there as you're picking up pizzas. It's a very similar model to if you've ever been like a pie pizza place. It's a smaller scale. So it's not really meant to be a long-term seating for the bar or a drinking establishment, I may call it. It's more of a grab and go or have a quick pizza and leave, so.
Thank you for that. Just as I dive a little deeper into the design, because again, from a curiosity perspective, that's really what our role is to ask these questions. I was looking at, of course, the exterior design that is proposed, and you referenced somewhat of a connection between the existing Greystone's facility, the cafe, as much as it would be operating independently. So for the sake of providing supplies, so you have, whatever the supplies are for a pizza location, an upscale pizza location, dough, and maybe, made in-house, but you still have those other supplies that are required. How are they going to be delivered? Because I couldn't figure out in the design where they would be, in fact.
Chair to Council Andrews, it is hard to see. So deliveries and necessary staff parking is at the north portion of the property in First Avenue. And then there's one access point, which is on 3rd Street, and that is for all pedestrians. So
Okay.
separating the two. And again, if there's an overflow of deliveries, we do have access to get to the Greystone's restaurant, which has a large loading area. That's the focus, but kind of quick deliveries, we do have a provision there and a interlock, sorry, couldn't think of the word, to provide those deliveries for daily needs.
And last question, again, you may not be able to answer this, but I'm going to pose it anyway. Again, from the economic portfolio, SWOT analysis. Was it done for the theme of pizza and upscale pizza operation?
Sorry, through the chair to council. That's a great question. The clients did do a fairly in-depth review of market base. It was an interesting approach, and this is before my time on the file, but Greystones came from a restaurant group to target that higher end restaurant style. The cafe was a kind of complementary, use of the property, which is in the early morning hours. And they've determined that the Pizza Co. 63 has a need in the community. So as a planner developer, that's not my area of expertise, but it's been a very successful restaurant to date on their Greystones property. So we believe that this, will work out in the long run and kind of function as a really nice community hub there.
Okay,
Very
thank
good.
you. I may come
No,
back with other questions, but
certainly.
move on with the other
Councillor
members of
Sherwood, I'm
council.
sorry I missed you earlier. You have the floor.
Thank you. Through
Yeah.
you, Chair Taylor. I have 2 questions for Mr. Hunter and one for staff. In your site plan slide, I noticed there was mention of 11 parking spots. Did that include the 2 that are off of First Avenue?
The chair to Councillor Sherwood, that is correct. So we've got seven parking spaces at the building, and then there's 2 across from that, and the 10 and 11 include the staff parking, which is on the north side at First Avenue. It would.
So they're not for customers, they're for staff? Yeah, sorry, I don't know if I can. There is another question I have about the site plan, so
Yeah.
perhaps if it could be put up, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Because that's where both of my questions are heading. In the meantime, I'll proceed with the question I had. If I look at the outdoor patio, it appears that the neighbor, is there a residential property off of First Avenue that would abut that? There's nothing? Like, what barrier is going to be up there to separate the patio from that neighbor?
To the chair to Councillor Sherwood, actually, maybe, sorry, I don't know if it would help. To slide 4, please. Just the one that's surrounding land uses. That one, that's perfect. So the northern property, again, is where the dwelling's being preserved and converted into the Pizza Co. So you can see that it's actually on the east side of this where those cars are parked in the commercial property. There's a tree line, and then again, this is conceptual patio. That would be on the interior side of our property. So if we did proceed with this patio, it only face the commercial site to the east. It does not, sorry to clarify, it does not face the residential to the north. It's just interior hidden on the back side of our proposed building.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure that a residential neighbor wasn't being displaced by, noise and things happening in a patio outside. And we still have to be respectful to that commercial property owner as well, to make sure that we're not encroaching on their, you're not encroaching on their business. Okay, and then my next question would be to staff, and the recommendation is for a CBD. And if Mr. Ward could please clarify the difference as to why having it zone CBD and not C5.
Mr. Ward?
Sure, thank you, Chair Taylor, and through you. So the applicant has submitted their request to redesignate the lands to Central Business District. They've explained their reasons why. We're still reviewing the application, and we'll take the comments received through the process into consideration in order to make a final recommendation to you at some point in the future. As part of our review thus far, we've raised some questions about the proposed Central Business District designation. The official plan policies speak to the intention for that area to really focus on the core area, the downtown core, basically. And it really permits a very full, broad range of uses, you know, from institutional type uses to office to a full range of retail, et cetera. And it really is focused geographically by policy definition on the blocks along Broadway between Faulkner Street and 3rd Street. So we had some questions about the appropriateness of that designation sort of extending northward along the 3rd Street corridor and maybe not really aligning with that policy intent. So an option may be to look at another designation, a commercial designation that not only accommodates the proposal that they're moving forward with, but it also is a little more cognizant of the context of the immediate surrounding area.
Councillor Sherwood?
And yes, through you, Chair Taylor. So one more thing, if they become part of the CBD, they're going to contribute to the Orangeville BIA. They'll be charged levies to the BIA. However, they won't under a C5 zoning, right? So has there been any conversation with the BIA about that?
Through you, Chair Taylor, we haven't looked at the relationship of the BIA boundaries and whether or not its designation contributes to their membership to that. We're looking at this from a land use planning sense alone and in terms of the policy direction for the Central Business District and how this concept maybe best aligns fundamentally with the policy framework that exists. I think overall, we're looking at the concept. We see there's some merit, but we see there's some questions as well, and we want to move forward with the most appropriate designation and land use category that we think fits the concept as presented, but also reflects the surrounding community context.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Councillor Sherwood, are you good? Just as an aside for you,
Yeah.
Councillor Sherwood, the BIA did discuss this,
Okay.
and there was no objection from the BIA.
Perfect,
And
okay.
I sit on the committee, and that's how I can
I
offer
think
that.
overall, my only concern as far as comment goes is I'm really concerned about the lack of parking.
Okay, very good, Councillor Sherwood. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Hunter.
Councillor Sherwood's brought up a very important part of this application. Can I ask if you can flip to the planning overview slide? This is kind of a critical part of our application, our request that we've responded with in our application and to staff, but I just want to make sure that this is clear for council because this might not make sense right at the top. So I think planning overview. Sorry, different numbers. I have a different number here. I messed up on the printing. This one. This is perfect. Thank you. So the left image you're seeing there is the official plan right now. The right the right image you're seeing is the current zoning. So on the left slide, you can see the residential, which we have today in yellow is the current designation, and under that is the Central Business District in pink. So our request again is to switch from yellow to pink. On the lower slide there, we're in the R1 zone right now and requesting the CBD. So there's only our property and a portion of the property to the east of ours, which is in the RM1. All the other properties we're looking at here today is in the Central Business District. So when I review the official plan as a qualified planner, I'm looking at this as the intent of the Broadway Street kind of commercial core, I'm going to call it for simple terms. So as Planner Ward mentioned, the intent is to provide a designation and a zoning which supports the land use here. But I'm also looking at this as part of a broader planning context and seeing Orangeville 1 year, 5 years, 10 years away from today. The intent of your policies is to create that Broadway Street Central Business District. So in my opinion, it doesn't make sense to introduce a new designation and a new zoning specifically for this property when we've got the requested designation and zoning on our existing land uses under the Greystones and then the surrounding communities. So it might just end up being a tailored site-specific, but according to our review, we would go straight to the central business district designation and then the CBD zone with the exception for parking. So, sorry to drag that on, but I think that's a really important part is when you visually see that, it definitely aligns with the policy direction of your official plan, and that's ultimately our intent.
Mr. Ward, did you want to offer commentary there?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair Taylor, and through you. So we're going to continue to work with the applicant and their team in terms of what we feel is the best planning instrument to move forward with that reflects the concept. But just to clarify with the presentation material in front of you, the property's basically further east of 57 Broadway. So it's sort of, there's, I guess on the map, there's the corner property, the subject property well, adjacent to the subject property at 63 Broadway. Beyond that, further to the east would be 57 Broadway, and then aside from that, you move into a service commercial area, and that extends through the balance of Broadway moving east. Again, the central business district is focused on those blocks that I mentioned earlier, and I know that the presenter has characterized the area as a broader central business district area, and I just wanted to clarify that there is distinction there, and it does move away from the central business district into the service commercial area.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ward. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you. I have one quick question, and again, I appreciate the opportunity. This would be for Mr. Ward, and again, maybe through Mr. Hunter, but with this particular application, would it require a traffic analysis? Because I know that we've spoken about the complexities we have in certain arteries in our community, and again, for those of us who, in this term of council, we've spoken about safety mitigation, and I recall in some of the applications that we have had through a public discussion like this, there has been somewhat of a requirement for traffic analysis. Was that part of this particular application?
Mr. Ward?
Yeah, through you, Chair Taylor, I believe they did. I know Ms. Pottle is here. She's the planner that's more intimately familiar with processing the application. She could confirm, but I believe they did, and that has been reviewed by our transportation group to look at its impact on the surrounding transportation network and its viability.
Okay, very good. That's all I have. Thank you. Yep.
Anyone else from council? If not, I have a few. I was just curious, Mr. Hunter, so there was some poignant comments given. Before I kind of asked my question, I just wanted to diatribe, and this is slightly off topic, but I think it's important that we bring it forward tonight. This is a great Orangeville business. They do great things for the community. They do an excellent business. We're so glad to have them here, which says to me, it's surprising to me, I would consider myself fairly in tune with what's going on in Orangeville. And silly me, I haven't heard things about singing versus acoustic, garbage, defecating, things that we don't want in our community. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but it would be great if you could take those comments back. And if someone, and I know there's some key folks in this room, could come back to council, perhaps informally, and we just discuss this and see what can be done. That's not what we want, and that's not what I know of this business. So I'm trying to draw a fine line between being respectful of neighbors and also recognizing the great things that this business does, and we want them to be successful. So I'm sure there's a disconnect here, but we shouldn't just leave it. You know what I mean?
When this was brought to our attention and through the ownership group, we've made it very clear that we expect this to be noted, if I can say politely. I mean, some of these comments were news to us, and ultimately, if you're the restaurant owner, you can't control what public does as soon as they leave your property. However, there's ways that are going to be explored to mitigate those aspects. So all we can say is we'll commit to reviewing it and
I would expect no less. So appreciate who that business is and who the ownership group is, and just would appreciate if they could look into that and be grateful for it. Okay, so if there's no other comments or questions at this time, I guess we will take a motion to receive the report and associated comments. Can I have a motion to do that? Yep. Okay. You're going to second? Yes. Okay. And Andy, you're going to move that motion? Okay, great. That 4th and 6th 3rd Street, and it is hard to say that, 4th and 6th 3rd Street Public Meeting Information Report, OPZ 2026, and associated comments be received for information. Last call, any discussion topics? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, very good. That passes unanimously. That motion carries. Okay, so I guess just before we move on, please note that there's a sign-up sheet is available outside in the atrium for those interested in receiving notice about this item moving forward. So please feel free to do that as you leave the building. So we'll move on to item 7.2. The next statutory matter on the agenda is regarding York Street Heritage Conservation District, the HCD plan. Staff had confirmed that notice was provided in accordance with the Planning Act for this item. I'll call on Ms. Jones, Senior Cultural Heritage Specialist, Stantec Consulting, to provide a presentation. And apparently you're virtual. Oh, there you are. Welcome.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. If I could have clerks share the presentation on screen, that would be great. Thank you. Great. So we're here tonight to provide a quick overview of the York Street Heritage Conservation District Plan as part of the statutory public meeting and process required under the Ontario Heritage Act. Just as a quick overview of the agenda, we'll go through a quick project review and timeline, review of heritage conservation districts in general, summary of the statement of cultural heritage value and heritage attributes, summary of the draft HCD objectives and policies and guidelines, a review of some of the exemptions in the plan, summary of consultation to date, and an overview of implementation of the district plan. Next slide, please. Thanks. And sorry, next slide again. So in terms of timeline, our team has completed the research, inventory, and background review for the Heritage Conservation District study in spring of last year with a public information center last June. We presented the HCD study and report to council in the fall and received direction to proceed with the HCD plan and review the boundary of the proposed HCD study. We presented to Heritage Orangeville in March on the draft HCD plan and had a public information center on April 9th. Next slide, please. So as a quick refresher, a heritage conservation district designates an area under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and manages change in the area to buildings, streetscapes, landscapes, and public works through heritage alteration permits and staff or council approval. Next slide, please. The study portion of our project determined that the Heritage Conservation District has value due to its representative collection of mid-19th to early 20th century properties, historical associations with the town's early settlement and the rapid growth of the town following the arrival of the railway, historical and physical links to Mill Creek, and streetscape character with generally consistent setbacks, massing, materials, and heights of historic residential buildings. Next slide, please. Some of the heritage attributes of the district include representative residential structures along York Street, Matthias Street, John Street, and Little York Street, which contextually support the mid-19th and early 20th century character of the area. Casey Gardens, which defines the southern boundary and has historic links to Mill Creek, an important source of water power during the 19th century in Orangeville. Landscaping of the public realm that includes mature street trees, boulevards with lawns, and street trees along York Street and the side streets. Next slide, please. So moving on to the plan itself, the HCD plan contains a range of objectives. These include maintaining and enhancing the historical residential character of the area, maintaining and enhancing historic streetscapes, conserving the historical architectural character of the area, supporting adaptive reuse of buildings or continued use, retaining historic building fabric, and replacing unsympathetic alterations when changes are proposed in the area. Next slide, please. So to achieve the HCD objectives, the HCD plan contains policies and guidelines that manage change through alterations, additions, and new development in the area. Some policies and guidelines apply to all properties that would be within the HCD, whether they are contributing or non-contributing, whether they are old or new. Other policies apply specifically to contributing properties, so those properties that meet 2 or more criteria under the Ontario Heritage Act and are typically historic properties that retain original historical materials, architectural styles, and contribute to the character of the district. The plan itself also contains policies and guidelines for landscaping, streetscaping, parks, open spaces, signage, lighting, accessibility, and sustainability. The HCD policies and guidelines were based on those initially prepared in the Merchants and Prince of Wales HCD that was done a few years ago, but have since been adapted to the study area context and the current policy and legislative context. Next slide, please. So I'll give an overview of a few of the sample policies and guidelines within the plan. It's a large document, so I won't be able to get through everything, but I'll highlight a few of the key ones from each of the different topic areas. So on screen here is an example at some of the HCD policies as they relate to windows. I know that's a question that we get a lot in heritage conservation districts. And the ultimate goal is to retain the original shape and size of window openings on contributing buildings and historic buildings. The images here help illustrate appropriate and inappropriate examples of windows and changes that would be supportive of the HCD character and not supportive. Next slide, please. We've also included sample policies for additions that show where they should be located on a building, generally at the side or rear and set back from the original facade of a building. Additions in an HCD should use materials that are compatible with the area's character, but should not directly mimic or copy historic architecture, so it's difficult to tell what's new and what's old. The image here shows some examples of appropriate and inappropriate heights and massing of additions on a building in a historic area. Next slide, please. The HCD plan also contains policies for new development. Heritage conservation districts do not prohibit development, but should guide change that is compatible with the area in terms of materials, styles, facade patterns, and setbacks. The images here on the screen show examples of appropriate setbacks for new buildings fronting on the street, and appropriate and inappropriate examples for locations of a new garage or accessory building. Next slide, please. The plan also contains policies and guidelines for parks and open space, landscaping, and streetscaping. Sample policies for KC Gardens, the park, include managing mature vegetation in accordance with ISA standards, retaining the spatial organization of the park or making alterations compatible with its character, retaining historical commemorative elements, and including future park design that's compatible with the character and setting of the park, and avoids overly utilitarian or temporary design or materials. Next slide, please. As required by the Ontario Heritage Act, the draft plan also contains exemptions for actions that would not require a heritage alteration permit. There are a number of them in the plan, so I'm not able to cover them all in one slide, but broadly speaking, those exemptions would include things like interior work not visible from the public right-of-way, minor repairs or maintenance, painting things like trim or doors or surfaces that have already been painted, replacing windows, doors, roofing, or driveways with the same materials or in the same dimensions, planting gardens, shrubs, flower beds, or laying sod, and public utilities servicing bike lanes, street parking that are within the existing right-of-way. Next slide, please. To summarize consultation to date, we've had 2 public information centers, one during the study phase and one in the plan phase. We have presented to Heritage Orangeville on both the study and plan. In the study phase, consultation comments were generally supportive of the goals and objectives to retain the area's historic character. There were some concerns that were identified related to the requirements for heritage alteration permits, concerns about potential bureaucracy, or concerns about contributing or non-contributing status of properties. Next slide, please. Comments received to date about the draft Heritage Conservation District Plan include some comments and questions about clarity of the policies and when they're applicable to rear yards, general comments in support of the policies and guidelines of the draft plan, some questions on the heritage permit process and requests for supplementary items to the plan, such as a checklist or flowchart, and several comments related to the HCD boundary. Next slide, please. So the draft HCD plan is largely based on the boundary that was identified in the Heritage Conservation District study, but anticipates removing two of the northernmost properties that fronted on Broadway, the service centers, that do not have a strong relationship to the remainder of the HCD. We based the draft plan on this boundary most closely resembling the study area so that property owners would have an understanding of what policies and guidelines would be applicable to the full area. Next slide, please. Based on Council's direction in proceeding with the plan and feedback received to date, we recognize that there may be adjustments to the boundary as the HC plan phase progresses. The blue areas shown on the map here represent some of the input received to date regarding potential boundary modifications. I will note that Council is the ultimate decision maker on the final boundary of the plan. It's important to note, too, that the threshold for a Heritage Conservation District under the Ontario Heritage Act is that 25% or more of the properties in the HCD need to meet two or more criteria of Ontario Regulation 906, or what we categorize as contributing properties. So even if the boundary were to be adjusted as shown here, the provincial threshold would still be met. Next slide, please. To implement a Heritage Conservation District, the town already has an existing policy framework for Heritage Conservation Districts in the official plan and could establish a delegated authority bylaw similar to that already in place for the Downtown Heritage Conservation District to streamline approvals. The Ontario Heritage Act provides the appeal process if heritage permits are refused. In our experience, Heritage Conservation Districts are most successful when there is a lot of education, awareness, and information available for property owners in the HCD made available through websites and communication through the town. Next slide, please. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have tonight.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Jones. Appreciate that. If you could just stay there for a few moments, we'll go into the public comments at this time. So we do have one registered delegate for this item. Delegates Karen Jones and Linda McNeil have withdrawn their delegations. So at this time, from the Royal Canadian Legion, Mr. Chuck Simpson. Mr. Simpson, please come forward, and thank you, sir, for being here. You have 5 minutes to share. Just as an aside, we have read your letter, very articulate. Thank you so much for taking the time to do that. You're welcome to read it again, or you could speak to the, certainly, yeah, you go right ahead. Oh, can we get?
Here but me. Anyway, Mayor Post, Town Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chuck Simpson. I am a member of the Royal Canadian Legion here in town. I did submit a written statement. I'd like to read that, please. The proposed York Street Heritage Conservation District Plan. The reason for our petition is to opt the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 233 Orangeville, 7 John Street, out of this Conservation District Plan. Bit of history. On March the 27th, the branch received an email stating that the Town Council was in the process of changing York Street to a Heritage Conservation District. It also explained they had expanded the proposed areas to include Bethia, parts of Bethia and St. John, plus of all KC Gardens. This would also include the Orangeville Legion. It also stated that the Orangeville Heritage Committee met the week before and voted to exclude two businesses, Goodyear Garage on Bethia and the Shell Station on John. But they too also decided to include the Orangeville Legion property in their conservation area. So on Saturday, the 28th of March, I emailed our mayor, Lisa Post, expressing concern and surprise about this. One, to make sure that an email that I received pointing this out was accurate or false, and two, to find out more information. I also forwarded a copy of the original email that started this query on my behalf. On the 31st of March, I received emails both back from the mayor, Lisa Post, and Mr. Brandon Ward, who clarified what the process was concerning the proposed heritage plan. I'd like to thank both the mayor, Lisa Post, and Mr. Ward for getting back to me quickly on this matter. The information provided by Mr. Ward greatly assisted me in understanding what was going to happen, because that's when I first got notice, so I was given this. Reading it, there's a part that jumped out that caused our concern. It says, note, in the infrastructure service information provided, there's a paragraph which states, Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, it provides a framework for protecting and conserving heritage resources, which is good, by creating policies and guidelines to manage change and new development within the district. That raised our concern. So some of the history of, I don't know if you know about the Legion, Branch 233 has been a part of this great community of ours for many, many years. And our main mission being that of assisting veterans and their families when called upon, plus participating within the community. We're also a part of a greater organization that is structured in such a way that even though we are independent in a lot of ways, we still have a chain of command to follow. There are a lot of rules and regulations to follow. Branch, zone, district, provincial, dominion, local, provincial, federal, that we have to follow. These are to be strictly followed. There are times if and when we must or need to make changes, either repairing, replacing, adding, or moving things that deal with the branch, we will be required to seek permission from that higher authority. This belonging to the Royal Canadian Legion, and I hope this doesn't go over well or bad, makes us separate from the local community, but still dependent on that community. So, conclusion. The members of Branch 2-3 have taken care of the Legion property for so many years. It is part of our history, a way of life, and we do not intend on going anywhere. Anything that could be perceived as a new means of control over the Legion would not go over well. When this information was brought up at our general meeting on Monday the 30th of March, the main question asked was, why was the Royal Canadian Legion 233 added to this plan? I haven't been given an answer to that yet. After discussing this matter, the membership stated that, in their opinion, we should have been treated like any other business within the area and excluded from this plan. Democratic Society, a vote was taken and all agreed to have this request submitted to the Town Council of Orangeville and have the Legion opted out of this process. So, on behalf of the members of the Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 233 Orangeville, I do hereby submit this request to you, and we are looking for your response. Yours sincerely.
Very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Simpson, and thank you to the Legion for going through that process and coming here and sharing that with us tonight. Is there any members of council? Any members? Mayor Post, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Mr. Simpson. I just wanted to clarify one item that you had spoken about, which was in regards to the boundaries and why the Legion wasn't excluded. And I just want to be clear that that area that you're looking at that was shown in the red lines when we get there, if the map goes back up, that was the study area. So we looked at that whole area as, or the consultants, not we, I was not involved in that piece, but the data collection was done by the consultants for that study area. So now that we're getting closer to the process, that's where we're looking at tightening up those boundaries when it comes to the full Heritage Conservation District, and we haven't voted on those yet. So this is, again, just another public meeting where, as we work through the process, I think it's really important that we continue to tighten in the area to make it be the conservation district that we want it to be. So just to clarify that.
Could I add one thing? The reason why I got involved so late was the letter that went out. I finally got a hold of one. It said, the renter or owner of 141. Nobody owns that building, like individually. So when it got there, I don't know. That email I mentioned, that brought me into line a couple of months ago, and then that's when I started getting involved. So it wasn't a delay or ignoring anything. It just didn't come in the right way. Anyways, thank you.
We understand that, Mr. Simpson, and honestly, everyone here, we're grateful that you came to the public meeting, and we're grateful that you spoke. So thank you so much for doing what you did. And if you can just hang on the hot seat for a second longer, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, through you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Simpson, for coming. First of all, I just wanted to make a comment regarding one of the statements you said about Heritage Orangeville having the meeting week before. Heritage Orangeville, I just wanted to let you know, as an advisory committee to council, council still ultimately makes the final decision. In the discussions, we were mindful of the proposal that Stantec had given us, and we decided to just recommend the 2 garages come out. However, like I say, council itself can decide if others are to come out. I also wanted to make note that when you're in a conservation district, I just wanted to clarify that there's, nothing to be afraid of. It's not like this, when you emphasize the word manage, it's also a way of protecting your property for things that can go around your property if you're in a heritage conservation district. So it's a protection for your building as well, not management and control by us. You can do all kinds of interior renovations and we will have no say in that. So there shouldn't be anything to be afraid of if you are still within, if council chooses to keep you in the boundary.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sherwood. Yes, Mr. Simpson.
It's not that there's no fear there. It's just that we believe there's a new layer being added. If you think you folks got rules and regulations, you should join the Legion. All I'm saying is I understand we have so many things to protect that property, and we feel putting it into a heritage will add a new layer. That's our opinion, so hopefully I respectfully submit it.
And you did so, sir. Thank you so much for that. And you also got a plug in for your organization to get people to join it. So well done. Well done on your part. Thank you so much for being here. I think that's, yep, you're good to go. Well, I wish you well with that. Thank you. Okay. So members of the public who wish to speak to this item can come forward now. Just a reminder that you're afforded 3 minutes to present your information, and the commenting period is open to all persons in accordance with the Planning Act. So is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to this item? No? Okay. Oh, we do? Okay, good. Yeah, please. Nice to see you again. Yeah, just state your name and address to be formal, if you could.
My name is Henry Vandendam, and I live at 18 Bethia Street. Excuse me. I have a lot of apprehension about all the control that comes with this heritage district. Like, one thing that came to mind was, okay, that they said, okay, your windows, same material and shape. So that means an arch window, you have to replace it with an arch window. That's probably 3-4 times the cost of a square window. And then if it's a wood window, you need to go with wood. That's another increase on the cost. So, okay, now if you don't like that idea, you can appeal that. So what's the appeal process? Like, do you go to a committee? Do you have to get representation? Is there going to be a cost involved? Seems to me it's going to be a lot of work to do something that, you know, people, they want you to fix those windows round. You can't afford it, and you can't afford to appeal it. So, I mean, I'm not in that situation, but I'm just think that there's a lot of oversight on this plan. And then, so if you do something that's wrong, how is it going to be enforced? Like, is there going to be a big fine involved, or you have to, like, what happens there? So, you know, and then again, with that whole thing, how come this plan, you know, it's proposed, but do you know the actual percentage of the people, the owners that want it? Has that ever been looked at? So those are basically my questions, and it just seems like there's a lot of control involved with this.
The consultant, okay. Ms. Jones, did you want to speak to that? There's 3 questions there. One was about windows and shapes, enforcement and fines, and the percentage of owners. Those are sort of the 3 topics.
To the first one, in terms of windows, so the plan right now does not have policies that require a wood window to be replaced with a wood window. The policies right now are focused on maintaining the shape in the opening. So you're correct in that, you know, if there is an arched shape, the preference would be to replace it with an arched shape, but there isn't a requirement to replace it with the same material. Where the same material aspect comes in is that exemption. So if someone is replacing a window that is already a vinyl window in an arch shape and they are replacing it with the exact same thing, then a permit would not be required. It's where there are changes from one material to another or a shape that's different from the existing one or the original one to a different shape. That's where the review and the permit process would come in. And usually we find that in our experience, staff or heritage committees who are reviewing those applications are very willing to work with applicants to find a solution that is a good fit for a property owner and a good fit for the character of the area. In terms of enforcement, the Ontario Heritage Act does allow for fines. I don't see that implemented all that often. Again, usually we see that if someone has done something that is not in accordance with the plan, they may be asked to go through the heritage alteration permit process or have a retroactive permit, or deal with the staff and committee to try and find a solution for alterations that have gone through without doing a permit. The HC plan is not retroactive. It's not a process where, people are going to start coming around and knocking on doors and say, oh, you did a renovation, 5 or 10 or however many years ago, you have to change that now. Applications and heritage alteration permits are only required for new changes that would be going forward after a district plan is put in place. And then in terms of the appeal process, again, usually there's a lot of, we find a working relationship with committees and staff in terms of resolving issues during a heritage alteration application and trying to find a good solution. If a heritage alteration permit is refused by council, the appeal would be through the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Henry, all good?
Okay, you're talking about going to the land tribunal. That's going to require representation, like a lawyer?
It can, but I believe people can represent themselves at the tribunal as well.
Basically the question. Now, what about the percentage of owners?
Do you know the percentage of owners, Ms. Jones? That's probably an unfair question.
We do not. We don't have a statistic property by property on that, no.
Mr. Ward, do you have any of that?
If you're speaking about in terms of like property owner support, we don't have those details. The study process requires that you look at the property's attributes, and if they meet or surpass certain thresholds for significance, then it warrants pursuit for designation.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Henry, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. Okay, is anyone else in the gallery? Yes, please come on up. Just state your name and address for the record.
Morgandale Crescent. A question that might assist the gentleman with his concerns with financial, and forgive me if it's been asked. Is there a financial kitty, a purse aside, so that if somebody needs to follow the recommendations, windows or something, and they don't have all the funds, is there a grant? Is there some financial assistance as because they are designated and because now they have limitations taken away from them?
Mr. Ward, did you want to speak to that at all?
Sure, through you, Chair Taylor. A grant like that would have to come through a municipal community improvement program. Currently, our CIP doesn't speak to the York Street area as being a candidate within the CIP boundary. I know there is some information out there about a possible heritage property tax incentive program. I don't have too much detail about that, other than it does have to be enacted by a municipal bylaw being passed to set up a program to offer funding support for those sorts of heritage-related improvements for designated properties. It's an involved process to administer and implement, but the tool is there.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Michelle. Anyone else like to come forward? Yes, please come on up. Oh, I think, Nick, do you mind just waiting a second? And then we'll just somebody behind, and we'll get you right up next. Okay, sir? Thank you.
Hello, Council, and
Hello.
everybody here, staff.
And can you just state your name and address again for everybody?
Yes, Linda McNeil, 21 York. And I just want to thank everyone in here who I've spoken to, you know who you are, regarding my property. It's been a little stressful. I'm new at this council stuff, new in Orangeville, and so I wasn't sure what was going on, but it's been a great outcome, so thank you for your support. And I just wanted to say the communication piece, Hank brought up a really good point that resonated really deeply with me. I never really felt like anybody ever asked me, and I think that was a miss. That's all. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Gristo? And if you could state your name and address for everybody as well.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Gristo. I live on 20 Paula Court, L9W5V1. So actually, I do have two questions tonight. The first one, I respect the historical part of Orangeville, and I hope this council will see it that way. So to keep it, as respectful as it is, especially in the historical area. And the other question I have is, I see there's still a lot of ruts and holes on those roads, especially on Blind Line and go north there. There is quite a few there.
Mr. Gristo, that's not part of the...
I understand it's not part of that, but that's a separate question. This is a public meeting.
No,
So you should be able to ask a
It's
question.
about one topic, yes. You just have to talk to the York Street Heritage District.
If that's the way it is, so what kind of public meeting is that?
It's about...
I thought that, I sat here 13 years, and here, this council, it seems to be like a dictatorship. Because when I was here...
Mr.
when I-
Gristo, we're going to cut your mic. Okay, the topic is about York Street, and you're talking about other things that aren't relevant or don't have anything to do with that. You're welcome to come and talk to us afterwards, or come to a council meeting and bring that up, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. Okay. Okay, and I didn't get a question, you just made a statement about York Street, so I didn't hear a question about...
I think the question was, the council should support the historical area.
Okay, that's a statement. Okay, very good. Thank you for your statement. Okay, does anybody else in the room want to speak to this? Okay, very good. So seeing, yeah, oh, come on forward. You are welcome to do so. I would be surprised if you didn't come up. Yeah. Can we, okay, your mic's on, go ahead.
It is, you can hear me, and council, staff, and gallery. I stayed up really late last night, so I am spun. I wrote a manifesto, so I'm thinking it'll come for the next step.
Well, you have 3 minutes, so no manifestos are welcome.
Okay, so, well, I think maybe I won't even look at this. I want to address or ask a question to Lasha. Does that count with the 3 minutes? Because
Sure,
about
please.
the windows and what Hank was saying about the windows, it's my understanding if you already have a shape of a window and you have a vinyl in there, or if they're arched frames, you don't have to replicate the arched frames. Like if the existing frame is that, you can actually insert a cheaper window that has a filler at the top, and that would probably come in at the same cost as, any vinyl window. And as far as, and Lasha couldn't answer the numbers, since 2018, there have been about 3 petitions, so I'm answering the question, so this doesn't count. There have been 3 petitions on York Street, and when I come up and present to you, I'm speaking for myself right now, but when I come and present a petition or something like that, I would never say on behalf of the street, like say, well, my street does this. If I said that, then I've gone to people on my street, and I have a petition. And somewhere in the files, you have 3 petitions. And the last petition, and I think it might be an overlap with the development, and these 2 things have been running very neck to neck. But prior to that, the 2018 petition, I believe there were only 3 people on the street that did not, and on our street, but then there were also people on John and Bethia that signed. So There were only 3 on York that I can recall that did not sign on the petition. So that is the kind of support that you have. Now, I've read the York Street draft plan, March 10th, 2026, and agree with the content and you can start timing me. Very reasonable applications.
You've been timed, Karen, sorry. So you've got 40
Oh,
some
no.
odd se- yeah.
Well, okay, well, I'm really impressed with the plan. And if you really read it and understand the non-conforming properties, like, this plan seems so lenient. And thank you for all of your support in the past. And I really want to thank Stantec. And that's it.
That's great. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. Any other comments or questions from the gallery? Wait, no? Okay. Seeing none, the town would like to acknowledge that we did receive 5 written correspondences on this matter. So residents Scott Wilson, Brenda and Terry Giles, Elizabeth Smith, Don Shimp, and Karen Jones all put in submissions, and we thank each of you for taking the time to do that. So I guess at this time, we're on to questions or comments from, Councillor Andrews, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Taylor, again, I want to thank everyone involved with this process. We still have much to go, as is identified in that very clear timeline, and so this is a question that is posed to our consultant, Ms. Jones. You referenced the education component. I just want to kind of go around this in an interesting way, and I want to thank, again, Councillor Sherwood, who chairs our Heritage Committee. And you caught my ear, Ms. Jones, when you talked about the education, the awareness, and information. What is an example that you can kind of pull out of your wheelhouse that wasn't highlighted in this particular report to council as part of this public meeting that is a best practice that you know of that has been applied in other heritage districts?
Ms. Jones?
Thank you. Through the chair, we've seen other municipalities who have heritage conservation districts put out an annual mailing, like a postcard or something like that, to every resident within the district that reminds them that the property is in the district, reminds them if there are incentive programs available, provides the information about that, and provides the link to where the Heritage Conservation District plan can be located or information on the municipality's website. Most municipalities that we see do things like this or similar outreach. We find these to be beneficial because property ownership can change, right? Somebody may buy a property and may not know about the district. Sometimes real estate agents don't put a lot of information out there on it, or it kind of gets lost in, all of the other things when properties change ownership. So those annual reminders we've seen be very helpful in other municipalities, as well as updated websites and stuff like that, so that property owners who have questions about when heritage alteration permits are required can go and find that information or reach out to staff or representatives of the Heritage Committee for questions or guidance.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
One more question, yes.
You want to go ahead?
Thank you so much, Chair Taylor. And again, Ms. Jones, thank you for your response on that. And I think that provides some education for us too as well. This particular question is, I guess, surrounding some of the correspondence that we have received at council. And again, I'm going to this was one of the first things I wrote after reviewing this particular document. And so I'm just going to recite it for what I have. It states we have some people that, or properties that don't fit the criteria, which is very clearly identified. What about those that do but don't want to opt in? Do you have any examples of other heritage districts or examples that allow for that to occur?
Ms. Jones?
Yes, it ultimately comes down to a council decision about the boundaries. When an area is designated as a district, any property within the boundary identified becomes part of the district. If there is an appeal period as part of any heritage conservation district, so property owners who would be in the district but oppose it have the right to appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal as well.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Mayor Post.
Thank you very much, Chair Taylor. Just really briefly, I just wanted to comment to Stantec, first of all. Thank you for the great report. I've been, following the process throughout, and it's so detailed, it's so specific, and it's been a great read. So I really appreciate the work that you've done. And our town staff as well have done an exceptional job of really getting us to where we are now, which I feel like we're on the home stretch. And I feel like we're on the home stretch. And it's been a long road, because there was a time not that long ago where we were almost here before and it got a bit derailed. So I'm glad we're back here. The one comment that I wanted to make was about the boundaries, which I know is going to be kind of moving forward through the next steps. And again, I had made the comment to Mr. Simpson when he was up that we had a study area, and now kind of the next step is to really tighten up those boundaries and make sure that we're using the right tools for the right purpose. And I think the Heritage Conservation District is a really great tool that we can use to really move forward our intent, which I think from council has been to preserve the rich heritage that we do have in that area. And I think to make us do that, I think we really have to narrow our focus to make sure that we are in that intended concept. So when we look at the map that was provided, there's the red line that was the study area, and then the blue line is the suggestions through consultation with staff and other stakeholders. And I just wanted to make my point known that I think that the blue line is kind of the right path to go. I think that really helps us narrow our focus into what our intent is, and to make sure that the district is what it's supposed to be, which we've intended it to be, which is preserving that core area. So I just wanted to make those comments.
Thank you very much, Mayor Post. And Councillor Sherwood, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I could go on about this for hours. Obviously, we've had many discussions at Heritage Orangeville level. The boundaries is an issue that, borderlines people's thoughts and processes. It will be coming in a further report, and I know Mr. Ward will be telling you what the recommendations are from Heritage Orangeville. And of course, we're an advisory committee. Like I said, we by all means don't make the decision. And after really extensive conversation, we decided to go with the red line excluding those 2 garages, but that will be coming forward in the future. And I would assume tonight, Mr. Ward, you're not really looking for council to pick which boundary they want. That will come at the report stage, correct?
Mr. Ward?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Taylor, and through you. We don't need a definitive direction at this time. We can take your comments back into context and move forward with the final boundary to come back with for a decision.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Sherwood?
Yeah, so my position still is to remain within the boundary. But I'm just saying as an opinion, the boundary excluding the 2 garages. I also want to thank Stantec. I have been through this plan multiple times, many reads, and I can tell you it's a fabulous document, and they have done really well as far as categorizing each building. So there was in written statements, someone suggesting that they be a non-contributing property. And I can tell you that the information that Stantec has done to review each property, properties have been properly categorized as far as which ones are contributing and non-contributing. And the one that came in the correspondence still meets the criteria, the minimum criteria is under 0906. So there would be no reason for us to go through a cost and expense to have Stantec redo all of the classifications when they've done an extensive job. And I don't think that would be money well spent to just come back with the same results. I don't know if that property owner is here or not, but I'm open to conversation with her as well as staff. But again, you will hear from Heritage Orangeville that we would like to go with the original boundary 1, excluding the 2 garages. But ultimately, we know it's council's decision.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor Sherwood. Seeing no other comments. I just have one, and I wanted to kind of just follow up on what Mayor Post had said, and that is, I agree. I think that the new drawn lines make a lot of sense from what I've seen, and I understand that we'll continue the review as I respectfully look at at our Heritage Club member, or a Heritage Board member, excuse me. But I wanted to bring forward and just say again, like, it is so amazing to me when our citizens step up and line in on a project and actually say what they're passionate about and what they think that should happen. So, you know, there's a list of folks that have shared what their thoughts should be, and some have done so more than once. I've responded to those folks when I've gotten the email, and candidly, I disagree or agree, and I let them know where I'm going to stand. But I just want to say, I think it's amazing that we do that. And the very fact that things have changed as a result of those inputs from those residents, those taxpayers, I think it says that our system works. So I think that's a really, really good thing, and I feel good about that. So with that, I guess we're all out of comments and questions. So can I have a mover for this motion at this time? Councillor Sherwood, Councillor McIntosh, all in favor? And that is that the York Street Heritage Conservation District Plan Public Meeting Information 2026-005 and associated comments be received for information. Okay. Very good. And so before we move on, please note that a sign-up sheet is also available outside in the atrium for those interested in receiving notice about this movement going forward. And before I move on to 7.3.
Sorry to interrupt. You didn't call for a vote on that last motion.
I didn't what?
So we need a vote on the last motion. You just read them. We just had a mover and second. There was no vote on it.
We all seem so aligned. I thought we could just move on. Can we say all in favor? I thought we did. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Before we move on to 7.3, I have a request for a brief recess. So if we take 10 minutes, and we'll come back for 7.3. Thank you. I'll call on the amazing Brandon Ward, the Manager of Planning, to provide a presentation. Brandon, you have.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Good evening again, everyone. So just a bit of a background context. So this is a housekeeping update to our zoning bylaw. So over the course of time, through day-to-day working with the zoning bylaw, certain issues or challenges arise with interpreting certain aspects of the bylaw, or certain issues arise which become problematic, and we need to undertake a housekeeping update. Just again, for more background, the last amendment we did was about in 2024. The main circumstances for that was to introduce new framework for additional residential units, and that followed the Planning Act permissions that allowed them as of right across single, semi, and townhouse dwelling units. So this time around, we're looking at a few items that have come forward that have posed some challenges for staff and for residents in the community with respect to using the bylaw. We're looking at updating our terminology for driveways and walkways in residential areas. We want to make some minor changes to the additional residential unit regulations, and I'll speak to that briefly. Another change we want to make is upzoning basically all of our R2 zone areas to R3. And the reason for that, and I can speak to that further, is you're going to allow singles and semis instead of just single detached zoning only. Some other amendments relate to increasing the number of model homes permitted in subdivision developments, a blended parking rate for mixed-use commercial plazas. We want to increase the home daycare provisions and the number of children to align with provincial regulations, and some other housekeeping or more technical, very specific amendments. Next slide. Oh, we're going to go 2 slides ahead, yeah. Okay, so in terms of driveways, the bylaw regulates driveway width, and it's basically a ratio related to the frontage of your property. And the reason for that is it maintains a nice balance of driveway space and yard or green space and landscaping area. And there's official plan policies that speak to that. You know, when you have a good balance, it's good, attractive neighborhood design. So the bylaw attempts to regulate that. And one of the challenges we've discovered is that oftentimes one wants to do a walkway abutting their driveway, and then there's some interpretation question about, is the walkway also forming part of the driveway width, and are there now limitations on how that space could be? So we wanted to set clear terminology to differentiate the two. And next slide. So we've not only added terminology just to differentiate between the two surface areas, we've also added standards that allow for a walkway subject to certain width requirements related to the driveway width, and set clear terminology in that respect. Next slide. So this again illustrates the driveway and abutting walkway width, and this is an example of a 5.2 meter wide driveway, so it fits the 2 parking spaces in side by side quite nicely. Another challenge we've discovered is that the 5.2 meter width doesn't align nicely with the parking space width requirement of 2.7 meters. Multiply that 0.2, it presents you at odds with the driveway width requirement. So what we've done is we're proposing to lessen the parking space width for residential driveways only, to tighten up that space, not adjust your driveway width per se, but also recognize, in a residential neighborhood setting where you're parking on a driveway, you've got a little more room to park than, say, a commercial area where you want to maintain that slightly wider parking space width. Next slide. So this is the additional residential unit regulation I was speaking to at the outset. So right now, our bylaw allows a detached additional residential unit to basically be 2 stories or 6.1 meters in height, only if the unit is above a garage. If it's not above a garage, it has to be whatever the main height requirement is for a detached structure, which is 4.3 meters. And we've had a few come forward where they want to do a 2-story detached residential unit, and they're conflicted with that requirement that it only be above a garage. So we want to streamline that and allow for the 2-story setting. And what we found that oftentimes if you have a 2-story detached structure, you can get a better living space in a tighter footprint. So there's advantages there, and we don't see a height impact because you already allow for a 2-story height when it's above a garage. Next slide. So I mentioned earlier the upzoning essentially of R2 areas to R3. It recognizes some consistency with the official plan designation for low-density residential areas that inherently permit singles and semis in combination. Our zoning bylaw is a little more differentiated. It has single detached only, basically, through the R2 areas, and then the R3 goes up to singles and semis. So it made sense to consolidate that. So what we're proposing to do is anywhere that's zoned R2 without a special provision, we would change that zoning to R3 to add the singles and semis. And what you see in the image, I think, shows this quite nicely, is that you can have singles and semis in the neighborhood kind of working together simultaneously without any real impact. They go together in good harmony. So we're proposing to make the zoning a little more cohesive to reflect that. One point I want to make, that the York Street area actually is zoned R2. We're going to exclude that. We don't want to change the zoning in light of the Heritage District underway. One of the aspects of that process actually is to put forward some recommendations of any changes you should make to your zoning bylaw if you need to, if there's zoning provisions that might be at odds with the district. That study and plan has shown us that there aren't per se, so the zoning is in good shape, but now is not really the time to go forward and do a wholesale housekeeping amendment change to that area. We'll leave it as is. Next slide. So as we've seen some other developments come forward, they're proposing very innovative concepts for townhouse products, and we wanted to update our zone terminology to reflect that, particularly add new terms for stacked townhomes, back-to-back townhomes, and also kind of change the older or more legacy terminology around like triplex and duplex terms, especially in light of the additional residential unit permissions now coming forward. So we wanted to streamline all those terms for clarity and consistency with new developments coming forward. Next slide. This is more of a rendering showing the different townhome products. As you see, the image on your left kind of shows how the stacked. Don't make too much emphasis on the stairs in front. It is a rendering, but it shows just the different entrances and how you could have a stacked product. Similarly, the image on the right shows how you can have not only a stacked product, but also back to back. It really starts to resemble more of an apartment concept, but the difference is they still have their own external amenity. They largely have their own private entrance point, or maybe through a common vestibule area. Next slide. Model home provision. So this is a very technical change. It doesn't have broad sweeping changes in the bylaw per se. With a draft approved plan of subdivision, the bylaw restricts, multi-unit development unless there's lot creation that has to happen when the subdivision is final approved. So oftentimes developers want to construct model homes in advance of that to sell their units, and the bylaw restricts that currently to only 4 units. That doesn't really accurately reflect the variety of housing forms you're typically seeing now in developments, and especially in today's conditions, we're starting to see a return to wanting to construct some model homes in some areas I've seen. So we want to make sure our bylaw is flexible and accommodating a broader range. It's also consistent with other municipal approaches that we've seen. Next slide. Blended parking rates. So this is an interesting one for our commercial areas. The bylaw regulates the provision of off-street parking as a relationship to the floor area for the use. So different use types have different parking rates relative to the respective floor area. So what we found is when you have mixed-use plazas, every unit within of a different use, you have to calculate its floor area and then generate the number of parking spaces. And cumulatively, that adds up in the site, and it becomes challenging to manage and keep track of as tenants change and units change over time. And it also becomes challenging for the property owner to maintain that, and you might have a point where you have certain unit changeovers that are close to the parking thresholds, and you're putting them into a situation where they may be needing variance approval. So it's not really an efficient way to manage the parking on these sites. So what we're proposing to do is a blended rate, which says for all uses in these sites, there's a common rate. So it's easy to manage. It's easy for the unit owners to manage changeover, et cetera, of permitted uses within those units. One caveat I wanted to mention is we are proposing a 40% cap on the restaurants because we know they can be high demand in some settings, depending on the composition of the restaurant, of course. But we wanted to put a cap so that an area doesn't become too heavily consumed with restaurants and become problematic from a parking management standpoint. Next slide. Home daycares, again, I mentioned this earlier. Currently, the bylaw requires home daycares to be capped at 6 children. Provincial licensing regulations allow for 6. We want to update that for consistency. Next slide. Parking for bicycles, the bylaw does regulate that, requires that for various uses. We wanted to clarify this and state those requirements also apply to multiple dwellings. So mid-rise apartments, condominium, townhomes, et cetera, would have a parking rate for bicycles. Next slide. So the commercial zone, the C3 zone, allows for a vehicle storage facility. Those are areas, there's not many of them. They're generally around the Broadway area, especially the periphery areas of town. The commercial areas, they have a broad range of commercial uses. It really doesn't seem practical to allow a vehicle storage facility in those areas. So we thought it's appropriate to eliminate that use from those areas. Next slide. Garbage enclosures, this is another more technical change we're making just to provide clarity around garbage collection and receptacle storage areas. This doesn't apply to the neighborhood setting, the blue box or the blue bin program. It's for the common garbage collection areas to make sure they're adequately enclosed and located appropriately on those townhome, like condominium townhomes and multiple dwelling units. Construction fencing, that's another issue we've encountered where the bylaw regulates fencing, it limits the height, et cetera, especially in the front yard areas. What we found is there's often confusion over, well, if there's a construction hoarding fencing going up, does that have to meet the bylaw? And it's something we want to allow temporarily, but we want to make sure there's no conflicts with the zoning bylaw. So we've introduced clear terminology to speak to that. Next slide. Just getting down to the last remaining items, the wellhead protection areas. This is the whole regime under a source water protection program. I think in 2024 through 2025 last year, we completed an official plan amendment to introduce the source water protection plan policy framework into our official plan. We now need to take that one step further and embed it into our zoning framework. So the housekeeping amendment will basically take some of that mapping information for our wellhead protection areas and provide some terminology around certain measures that need to be fulfilled in order for new development proceeding in those areas. It all follows consistency with what's set out in the Source Water Protection Plan and the provisions under the Clean Water Act. Next slide. So that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ward. There is, I guess it's time for public comments. There is no registered delegates for this item, and we do not have anyone on the phone, and it looks like the gallery has dispersed. So that means that we're on to members of council. Anyone from council wish to speak to this item? No, seeing none. Okay. I guess at this time, we'd like to acknowledge that we have not had any written correspondence, and we will need a motion to receive this information. So could I have a motion to do that? Councillor Andrews, Councillor McIntosh, thank you, is the seconder. That the town initiated zoning bylaw amendment, housekeeping updates, public information, PM 2026-006, and associated comments be received for information. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none. All those in favor? Yes, motion carries. Thank you very much, Mr. Ward. We'll now move into the non-statutory portion of the public meeting, item 8.1. The next matter on the agenda is regarding the open fire bylaw update. I will now call on Chief John Schneider, Fire Chief, Orangeville Fire Services, to provide an overview of the open fire bylaw update. Chief Schneider.
So we have a number of bylaws in place around open air burning. And there were some things that have cropped up in the last 3 to 6 months where we were finding the past bylaw didn't quite fit the needs or the current needs that we're seeing in the town. So we took the opportunity to put together a new bylaw. We've reworded it as the open air fires bylaw. Next slide. The reason for the open air fires versus open air burning is a term directly out of the fire code, which allows the municipality to regulate open air burning. Open air fires just allows us to expand that around some other uses that we're seeing in the town around outdoor fires, and allows us within the bylaw to address some of those instances that weren't otherwise captured in the old bylaw. So this proposed bylaw keeps the core controls that the residents know today in place. It clarifies what is allowed and what isn't allowed, obviously in being prohibited, and what Orangeville Fire Services can do when things are a little bit outside of the boundaries. Next slide. Under the existing bylaw, certain fires did not require a permit and therefore were excluded from the nuisance clauses. That's the core of why we're here today. The previous bylaws explicitly said you don't, this bylaw does not apply to A, B, C, and D. The challenge with that is that when we didn't apply that, the nuisance or adverse effects clauses couldn't be applied to it. So this is the main crux of why we brought the bylaw forward pretty quickly to try and get it in place for our burning season coming up today. So this updates when a permit is required, but also clarifies that if it is it a permit exemption, you're not exempt from the bylaw and still have to adhere to the health and safety intents of the bylaw, follow the fire bans, and obviously have a responsible person involved in the burning. Next slide. There are, I think, 6 different bylaws out right now that have the core bylaw and I think 5 amendments. Those amendments were all around COVID hours of burning and different things that happened. This is an opportunity to consolidate this and repeal those if everything goes through and put this into one clearer bylaw. We did update a number of definitions. We clarified the exemptions and we reinforced the enforcement tools that we do have in place. So it better reflects the nuisance and the air quality and public safety concerns. Unfortunately, some people are using the exemption of open air burning for the purposes of cooking to extend it, and they have the package of hot dogs there, and technically it's hard to enforce, and it's therefore exempt. Under the new bylaw, if it's creating a nuisance to the neighborhood, air quality issues, we've had issues with ash all over vehicles 10 doors down, but because they have hot dogs there, they're technically were qualified as under the old bylaw, and we couldn't sort of enforce that. So this provides a little bit of clarity for residents, obviously for council, and for our staff as far as enforcement and have a clear and consistent set of rules. Next slide. So what stays the same? We still require a permit for open air fires unless they're specifically exempted in the bylaw. It maintains the core setbacks that you have to have a 3-meter minimum from building structures, property lines, trees, wires, all those different things that have not changed. It does maintain the sensitive receptors, which I think is a great tool in our community to ensure that the public safety is at the forefront. It does allow the fires to be burnt during 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. unless otherwise permitted. It's only for clean, dry wood in these outdoor fireplace units. So again, it's not for garbage or burning your old tires or anything that we the odd time run into. And it does restrict it in townhouses or multi-unit residences where there's just not enough space to have a fire without being really a nuisance to your neighbors. Next slide. We did expand the permit exemptions just for a little bit more clarity. So again, it states when you do not require a permit, but you still requires you to be in compliance. So cooking fires and smokers that are used for food preparation, heating, construction, maintenance, and that for construction type environments. If you have a listed propane or natural gas appliance being used as it was designed is exempt. And we've added some other pieces, the gel pots, those little desktop things that sometimes people were questioning whether it was permitted or not. And we understand that a lot of people enjoy those and they're fairly safe if used properly. Candles, tiki torches, and other similar devices with a fuel capacity limit, so again, not too large. We've also added sacred fires in here for the first time, just for clarity of being permitted without requiring a permit, and fire suppression and law enforcement purposes as well. So many of those were in there, but we've just cleaned up the nuance of some of the ways those apply. And again, just those ones that don't require permits still have to follow the nuisance and adverse effects part of the bylaw. Next slide. So again, those things, we've cleaned up some wording. It talked about smog alert. That's sort of a legacy term. We've included a special air quality statement or smog and air health advisory. And the term they typically use is the AQHI of 7 or higher is when they start looking in other communities of that there shouldn't be open air burning. We've also recognized how we can, how we respond and how the complaint process works. Ultimately, if you're burning, you have to be aware of your neighbors and attempt to address their concerns. So, you know, if the fresh laundry's on the clothesline and someone lights a smoky fire, that's something they should be working. The neighbors should be working together to address. It also adds a definition for a responsible person, someone being over the age of 18 that's there at all times, makes them responsible for it, and maintains our authority to enter lands, which we already had under the FPPA, the Fire Protection and Prevention Act, but it adds some clarity in the bylaw. Next slide. And again, for residents, this gives very clear rules on what needs a permit, a little bit more transparency about when fires must be extinguished, and better protection for those in the neighborhood about smoke and nuisance impacts. For council, obviously, we're going to modernize the bylaw instead of the multiple amendments, bring improved rationale for the nuisance and health and safety protections, and a little bit more stronger administrative and enforcement clarity. And obviously for the fire service, again, it gives us some good goalposts to work within and make sure that we're fair and equitable across our community. Next slide. The last comment I'll make is the nuisance part comes out of the Municipal Act. So the FPPA allows you to regulate the burning, but the application of the nuisance and adverse effects actually comes under the authority under the Municipal Act to create a bylaw in there. So this is an opportunity to kind of bring those two together under one tool. Happy to have any questions.
Very good. Thank you for your presentation, Chief Snyder. We have no registered delegates at this time. There is no one on the phone, and the gallery has, for the most part, softened out. So we will turn it over to council at this time. And to you, Councillor McIntosh.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Snyder, for this bylaw. Everything's pretty well covered off. I just had a couple of questions. My first one is 8.12. The hours from 12 p.m. to 11 p.m. Has that changed?
I will double check. I believe it's the last amendment was put it to from those hours. And
Okay.
I think it aligns with the noise bylaw from the town. I'll clarify for sure and get back to you.
Just where this is coming from, I actually changed that because anybody burning at 12:30 in the afternoon is not roasting marshmallows or having a friendly dinner with friends. We decided to do it, I think it was from 6 till 11, but that, you know, that's up to you. You've got to enforce it, not me. The second one is 3.1 point B. And we talked about this, you and I, about an adverse effect, harm or material discomfort to any person. Some people take that to the absolute ninth limit. I had one gentleman would drive around, and if he seen smoke, he would phone me at home and say, "This is bothering me." So we had to take that out of our bylaw, but because you're putting it in, should there be something in there that you or whoever you delegate your authority to has the right to make a decision if that really is having discomfort to a person? Like if someone lives on one street and somebody's burning 3 streets over, whoever's there could decide, no, this isn't an issue. But again, that's just a suggestion to eliminate that. Thank you.
Chief Schneider, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you. Through you. It's always going to be tough with open air burning. We understand sometimes in our communities now the neighbors don't have conversations and resolve issues. And we do have a number of neighbor disputes that become burn complaints. So it's something that our crews are pretty comfortable in managing. There's always going to be a bit of gray area, unfortunately. So, you know, we look at repeat calls back to the same address. Those types of conversations we'll engage in and again, try to resolve, which unfortunately is often a neighbor dispute, not really an issue about burning.
Yep. Councillor McIntosh, does have something?
Just a quick follow-up. Going back to the burning hours, I think that was actually changed because of COVID. because people weren't allowed to go out. And I don't feel that you need to be burning at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. That's just my opinion. And that's the only thing I don't like on this bylaw. But thank you.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Councillor McIntosh. Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Taylor. Chief Snyder, thank you for this update. Greatly appreciated, and all the work that you and your team does. You caught my ear on sacred fires, and the reason why is one of my files this term has been EDI, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And part of the goal of what that particular committee has been able to do over this term and through the staff as well is provide education in various ways to our community. What would be an example of a sacred fire, and how would we be able to educate our community? Because again, with this, it's identifying that it would be exempt. But there are many people in our community that have no idea what we would be talking about, and I think that that might be just an opportunity for us to, form some communication to the community.
Chief Snyder.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy. That's a great point, and it's obviously new to this, but other communities have tackled this problem before. I think we will reach out to the stakeholders and make sure we have a full understanding of when it might apply in Orangeville, and then work on some social media around that, some guidance around that.
Great, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andrews. Seeing no other comments? Okay, very good. So at this time, written correspondence, I'd like to acknowledge that the town has not received any written correspondence for this item. And we are at a motion to receive this information. So we've gone through the council questions. Can I get a motion for this item? Councillor McIntosh, Councillor Sherwood, yes, wants to do that. That the open air fire bylaw update presentation and associated comments be received for information. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Yes, and that passes unopposed. And so that is the end of the evening. I feel like I want to drag this out a little bit and keep talking, but I will turn the meeting back over to you, Mayor Post. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Taylor. With that, we'll go straight into bylaws. Today, we only have the confirming bylaw. Could I get a mover and a seconder that the confirming bylaw listed below be read 3 times and finally passed? Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Andrews, all in favor? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn. Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Andrews, all in favor. Thank you. We are adjourned.